You know that feeling when you're sure the universe has got your back? That was me, Emily, living in what I thought was a rom-com level romance. Tom, my soon-to-be hubby, was the kind of guy who'd walk the dog at 5 a.m. just so I could sleep in. We clicked, you know? So there we were, me and Tom, at Luigi's, our go-to spot for date night. Twinkly lights, check. Garlic in the air, check. Just a regular Tuesday, or so I thought. Tom, you seriously need to stop making me laugh. I'm going to spit out my wine, I teased, as he was recounting his latest office mishap. He just grinned. That's the plan, Em. If you make a scene, maybe we'll get a free dessert out of it. We were in our little bubble until, out of nowhere, Tommy! Emily! What a small world! Linda, in all her floral dress glory, stood there, beaming as if she'd won the lottery. Tom nearly choked on his ravioli, and I felt my smile freeze. Oh, Linda, what are you doing here? I said, trying to keep it friendly while signaling the SOS to Tom with my eyes. I was just passing by and thought I'd pop in for a bite. Mind if I join you two lovebirds? She already had her purse off her shoulder, ready to sit. Tom recovered, coughing a bit. Well, it's our date night, you know. Linda waved a hand, dismissing the notion like a fly. Oh, pish-posh, I'll just sit for a minute. I've missed seeing you two. Before we knew it, she was pulling up a chair, and the waiter was setting a third place. There went our romantic evening. So, Emily, dear, how's the wedding planning? I hope you're considering the peonies for the centerpieces. They really are the best choice. I exchanged a glance with Tom, taking a deep breath. Actually, Linda, we were thinking of going with lilies. They're my favorite. Linda made a face, as if I'd suggested decorating with weeds. Lilies are so common, Emily, but it's your day, I suppose. Anyways, Tommy, did you tell her about the idea I had for the honeymoon? An Alaskan cruise would be unforgettable. I could tell Tom was trying to figure out how to steer his mom away from hijacking our wedding, and now our honeymoon. Mom, we were kind of set on the beach getaway, remember? Linda pursed her lips, but then her eyes lit up with that, I have the perfect solution glow. Well, you could always do both. I saw this great 2-for-1 deal. That's when I knew we were in for a ride with Linda. She was like a living, breathing wedding planner and life coach we never signed up for. But hey, at least we got that free dessert. The waiter felt sorry for us, I guess. Wedding prep is like juggling cats, let me tell you. And if your fiancé's mom is Linda, it's like the cats are on fire. I'm up to my neck in fabric swatches and catering menus, and then there's Linda with her giant binder labeled Tommy's Wedding, which was weird because last time I checked, I was the one marrying him. One evening, Tom and I were sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by guest lists and table settings, when Linda burst in like we were on some home makeover show. Emily, darling, I've got it all figured out, Linda announced, dropping her binder with a thud on the coffee table. I glanced over at Tom, who gave me an I'm so sorry look. Oh? Figured what out, Linda? I said, trying to sound curious instead of wanting to bolt for the nearest exit. The seating chart. You won't believe it, but I've managed to seat everyone according to astrological signs. It's going to be so unique, Linda beamed, clearly pleased with herself. Tom sighed, running his hands through his hair. Mom, that's creative, but Emily and I already worked on the seating chart together. Linda's smile faltered. But I just thought. I jumped in before this could turn into a guilt trip. We really appreciate the help, Linda, but we've got this covered. Right, Tom? Tom nodded, giving my hand a little squeeze under the table. Yeah, Mom. Emily's got some great ideas, and we're pretty happy with them. Linda wasn't used to resistance. She huffed a little, flipping through her binder as if it held the secret to world peace. Fine, but what about the invites? Please tell me you're not still considering that dreadful calligraphy. It's practically unreadable. Tom looked at me, and I could tell this was his breaking point. Actually, we both like the calligraphy. It's happening. I swear, Linda's eyes could have started a small kitchen fire. But then, as if a switch flipped, she was all sunshine and rainbows again. Well, it's your day. She was definitely not happy, but she was trying. The next hurdle was Grandma Ruth. Sweet lady, loves crosswords, makes a mean pot roast. Linda, though, wanted her off the list. She'll just cause drama, Emily. It's better for everyone. That's where Tom drew the line. No, Mom. Grandma Ruth is coming. She's my grandma, and that's not up for discussion. Linda's lips were a straight line. Tommy, I thought you wanted a peaceful, perfect wedding. I do, Mom, with Emily and with Grandma Ruth there. End of story. The battle lines were drawn, but we stood our ground. Linda backed down on that one, but I could tell this was just round one. Only about 100 more rounds to go before the big day. Choosing a wedding dress is supposed to be one of those magical moments for a bride. It was for me, right up until Linda, my future mother-in-law, turned it into a battlefield of beads and lace. I'd fallen in love with a simple, elegant dress, but Linda insisted on something that looked like it should be in a royal wedding, if that wedding was in 1985. It took every ounce of patience and a little backup from my friends to diplomatically decline Linda's generous suggestion. You really should try something with a little more sparkle, Linda insisted as she pushed a monstrosity covered in sequins towards me. But I like this one. I tried to keep my voice steady, holding the dress Jenny had found for me. It feels right. Linda huffed, her lips pursed in a thin line. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you look back at your wedding photos and realize you look like every other bride out there. The hairstyles weren't any easier. My idea of a loose flowing style was apparently too casual for Linda, who seemed to have a hairstyle playbook that exclusively featured updos capable of picking up satellite signals. This one will make a statement, Linda declared as the stylist piled my hair higher. I caught the stylist's eye in the mirror, and she mouthed a silent apology. I could tell she was used to this dance. Linda, I really appreciate your input, I said, after escaping from the latest architectural wonder on my head. But I think I'm going to go with the original style I had in mind. Linda's disappointment was palpable, but thankfully she let it go, at least for the moment. The wedding itself was beautiful. Despite Linda's sulking face, I walked down the aisle, feeling lighter than air. She tried to push for last-minute changes, but Tom and I stood united, and everything went off without a hitch. Linda spent most of the reception throwing side-eyes at Tom's grandmother, who chuckled and teased her at every opportunity. You look like you're sucking on lemons, Linda. Lighten up, it's a party. Grandma chuckled, clinking her glass with mine. Linda shot her a look that could sour milk. I just want everything to be perfect, she muttered. Grandma patted her hand with mock sympathy. Oh, honey, the day is perfect because they're happy. Look at them. And she was right. Tom and I were happy, no matter what Linda thought about the decorations, the food, or the music. It was our day, and not even a sour-faced mother-in-law could change that. The few days after our wedding were eerily quiet. Tom and I were settling into our new life together, unpacking wedding gifts and sending out thank you cards. I should have known this piece was just the eye of the hurricane, because Linda was about to unleash a storm none of us saw coming. It was a lazy Sunday morning when she arrived, unannounced, of course. She had that look on her face, the one that said she had something up her sleeve. Morning, Linda, I greeted her, trying to keep the wariness out of my voice. Emily, Tom, I've been thinking, she began, settling onto our sofa without waiting for an invite. I can't bear the thought of being away from you two for so long, especially with you going off on your honeymoon soon. Tom and I exchanged a glance. We'll only be gone for 2 weeks, Mom, Tom said, the confusion clear in his voice. That's just it, Linda continued, clasping her hands together like she was about to deliver great news. I've decided to join you. It'll be so much fun. The room was so quiet, you could hear the clock ticking. Join us? On our honeymoon? My voice was flat, disbelief and annoyance warring for dominance. Yes, Linda beamed, oblivious to our shock. I found this delightful little place right next to where you'll be staying. I'll hardly know I'm there. Tom finally found his voice. Mom, honeymoons are for couples to be alone, together. You understand that, right? Linda's face fell, and she turned to me, eyes wide with a guilt-inducing shimmer. I just thought I could help make it special. You wouldn't even notice me. Linda, I said, trying to be as firm yet gentle as possible. A honeymoon is really just meant for the couple. It's about us having time to ourselves. She looked between us, her expression crumbling, and I felt a pang of something like guilt, but I squashed it. This was our time. Oh, all right, she said after a moment, her voice laced with disappointment. "If that's what you want." I could tell from the way she said it, this wasn't over. Linda had a plan, and this was just the beginning. Tom squeezed my hand, a silent vow that we'd weather whatever storm Linda was brewing up together. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread after Linda's honeymoon surprise. Tom and I had hoped for some peace, but it was clear that wasn't happening. Two can play at this game, I thought. The next day, I called Tom's grandma, Ruth. If anyone could outmaneuver Linda, it was her. "Hello?" Ruth's voice crackled through the phone. "Hi, Ruth. It's Emily. I need some advice. Or maybe more like a partner in crime." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "What's she done now?" I explained the situation, how Linda wanted to join our honeymoon, and my plan to call her bluff. "I think we should invite you along, make it a family affair. Linda wouldn't dare to go if you were there, right?" Ruth's laugh was loud and clear. "Oh, Emily, that's devious. I love it. Count me in." Tom walked in as I hung up, raising an eyebrow at my grin. "Why do I have the feeling you're up to something?" "Because I am. I talked to Ruth. She's coming on the family honeymoon," I air quoted, which means Linda will back off. "You think that'll work?" "It has to," I said, though my confidence was more for show. We didn't tell Linda about our surprise, because she's not the only one who can surprise. The next time she came, we were sitting modestly on the couch and barely restrained ourselves from winking at each other. Linda looked at us suspiciously, but didn't say anything. She continued to admire the future honeymoon for three, offered a bunch of crazy ideas that were supposed to cheer up. When Linda finally left, promising to get back to us, Tom let out a long whistle. "Think she'll change her mind after all?" "I hope so, for our sanity's sake. However, there is little hope for this." We laughed, but the tension didn't fully lift. This was just one battle in what was shaping up to be a long war, but at least for now, we had the upper hand. The first few days at the ski resort could have been ripped from a romantic movie if it wasn't for Linda, my mother-in-law, who stuck to us like glue. Personal space was a concept as foreign to her as subtlety. No matter where Tom and I went, Linda was always there, right on our heels, insisting on just happening to show up wherever we were. She didn't give us a chance to be alone. One day, she knocked on our door late at night just because she missed us. Well, yes, because she hasn't seen us for 2 hours. Then, Linda asked Tom to help her choose skis, which took a good half a day. In the end, we only had time to have dinner, and tired of her endless chatter, immediately fell asleep. This is not how I imagined the marriage journey. Our honeymoon was starting to feel more like a group outing, and any chance of romance was quickly getting buried under the snow. But everything changed the morning Ruth, Tom's grandmother, arrived. We were just finishing breakfast when Ruth sailed in, a burst of energy in the quiet room. "Surprise!" she announced, her voice breaking through the awkward silence that had settled between Tom, Linda, and me. Linda's fork dropped with a clatter. "Ruth? What on earth are you doing here?" Ruth flashed a bright smile, removing her gloves with a flourish. "I thought I'd take up that family trip idea. This place is simply delightful." I watched Linda's face turn from confused to horrified. It was clear she hadn't anticipated this twist. "But you can't stand the cold," Linda said, a tremor in her voice. "Oh, I find the cold quite refreshing, and it's been years since I've hit the slopes." Ruth's eyes twinkled with mischief as she sat down. Tom squeezed my hand under the table, a silent cheer for the unexpected ally who'd swooped in just in time. Ruth commandeered the conversation, filling the space with stories and laughter. Linda, meanwhile, was unusually quiet, her earlier enthusiasm to chaperone every moment of our day vanishing. Out of Linda's earshot, I leaned toward Ruth and murmured, "I can't thank you enough for coming." Ruth gave my hand a gentle pat. "I'm just enjoying my holiday, dear. Anything else that comes from it is just a bonus." As we all stood up from the table, Linda lagged behind, her steps slow, a stark contrast to her previous eagerness. With Ruth's arrival, the tension that had been building like a pending avalanche seemed to ease. The honeymoon was back on track, or at least that's what it felt like in that hopeful moment. As the days slipped by with Ruth firmly by our side, a new routine took shape. Mornings were for the slopes, afternoons for the cozy fireside chats, and evenings. Well, evenings were when the real show began. One night, it all came to a head. Ruth had been pressing Linda's buttons in the most grandmotherly way possible, cloaked in concern and sugar-coated words. Linda, in her desperate attempts to remain the picture of politeness, was a simmering pot on the verge of boiling over. We were all gathered in the lounge, a usual gathering spot after dinner, and I noticed Linda's smile twitching as Ruth recounted tales of Tom's childhood mischiefs. "Oh, Linda, you would have laughed to see Tom as a little tyke, always with his head in the clouds." Ruth cackled, her eyes twinkling mischievously. Linda forced a laugh, her grip tightening on her tea. "Yes, Ruth, children are such a handful, aren't they?" Ruth's next words were like a velvet glove with an iron fist. "They surely can be. But the real task is knowing when to let them be their own person, don't you think?" That did it. The room seemed to hold its breath as Linda's cup clinked onto its saucer. "I think," Linda began, her voice laced with a forced calm that fooled no one, "that a mother knows best when it comes to her own son." Tom's hand found mine under the table, a silent plea for strength. I squeezed it, bracing myself. Ruth leaned forward, her voice soft but carrying. "And what about when that son is a grown man, Linda?" The lounge was silent, every pair of eyes sneaking glances in our direction. Linda stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "A mother's job is never done," she declared, her voice a crescendo of frustration. Ruth simply looked up at her, not a single wrinkle of concern on her forehead. "If you say so, dear." With that, Linda stormed out, the echo of her outrage bouncing off the walls. The tension broke like a snapped ski pole, and the room erupted into hushed laughter and snickers. Tom's grandmother just shook her head, chuckling along with the crowd. The rest of the night was a blur of whispered jokes and shared glances. Even Tom and I couldn't help but let out a few suppressed laughs, the absurdity of it all finally sinking in. Linda, once the puppeteer, had become the marionette, and the whole resort had front-row seats to the spectacle. As we retired for the night, Tom wrapped an arm around me. "I've got to hand it to Grandma. She sure knows how to put on a show." I leaned into him, a smile spreading across my face. "Yeah, who knew our honeymoon would include live entertainment?" As the door closed behind us, the muffled sounds of the still chuckling guests assured us that the tales of this evening would be woven into the resort's history, a legendary battle of wills with a snowy backdrop. The quiet that welcomed us home was a stranger after all that noise at the resort. It was weird, but I found myself half missing the drama. Half. It was a lazy Sunday morning when the phone rang, shattering the silence. I glanced at Tom, who shrugged and mouthed, "Don't answer it." But something nudged at me, a little voice telling me this call was different. "Hello?" I said tentatively. The voice that came through was shaky, like the owner was trying to hold it together. "Hi, it's Linda." I tensed up, a reflex by now. Tom's eyes were on me, filled with concern. "Hi, Linda," I managed to say. There was a deep breath on the other end, and then, "I've been doing a lot of thinking." I waited, not trusting myself to speak just yet. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she continued, the words seeming to catch in her throat. "For everything." I blinked, stunned into silence. I didn't realize how overbearing I've been. Seeing Ruth and, well, hearing myself at the resort. It was eye-opening. Tom was now by my side, his hand reaching for the phone, but I waved him off. This was one conversation I needed to finish. "It's been a lot, Linda," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "For both of us." "I know, and I can't change what I've done, but I'm going to try to be better. For you, for Tom, for us." The sincerity in her voice was new, like a layer of ice had finally melted. I found myself taking a step toward forgiveness. "We appreciate that, Linda. It means a lot." There was a sniffle from her side, and then, "Thank you for being so understanding." I smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Thank you for calling." As I hung up, Tom was looking at me with a mix of awe and relief. "Was that for real?" I nodded. "I think so." She sounded different. He wrapped his arms around me. So, what now? Now, I said, feeling the weight of the past lifting. We give her a chance, and we enjoy our peace. Tom chuckled. Yeah, I could definitely get used to this quiet. The future suddenly seemed a little brighter, a little more open. Maybe, just maybe, we'd all come out on the other side of this mess as a real family. And in that moment, I believed it was possible.